Mohammed Kudus to Tottenham Hotspur. We'll have a look. We'll certainly have a look. It seems as though this morning the news has been breaking from a lot of reliable Tottenham accounts that he is emerging as our number one candidate for that sort of marquee attacking signing. We've looked at Xavi Simons, we've looked at Eze, but it seems like we might be settling on Kudus. We had a bid rejected for £50 million last week. That was confirmed by Paul O'Keefe, and apparently a deal could be done around that £60 to £65 million mark, which I'll tell you what, I just didn't even think about this one. It didn't even really cross my brain. Purely, I think, because he plays for West Ham, because I think of the hype around him last summer and some of the clubs that wanted him. You look at the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, even clubs abroad as well, but he was priced out of a move by West Ham. And now this summer, it feels like the hype has really died down on Kudus, and that might be a huge opportunity for Tottenham Hotspur. He's 24 years old. He's supremely talented. He's a hugely talented footballer. He's demonstrated that over the past 2 years in the Premier League. Yes, this season has not been as good by his own standards. I think West Ham fans sort of know that he's mentally checked out of the club and that he was always looking to have a move. This summer, he had that weird release clause, I think, for the first 10 days of July, which will expire on the 10th of July for £85 million. But like I said, reports confirm that a deal will be able to be done with West Ham for a lot lower than that, and he will be moving on from West Ham this summer, and it's something that Tottenham are really looking at. It appears as though he's sort of jumped above Eze and Simons in that pecking order for that versatile, marquee attacking signing that Tottenham Hotspur want, and that for me is, I love that. If we manage to get this Kudus deal over the line, for me, I know I said it, I know it might be unpopular because of the dip of the hype and stuff like that, maybe because he's from West Ham, people will be turning their nose up at him and stuff, which I just think is ridiculous, but it will be one of the signings of the summer in the Premier League, and I will stand by that if it happens, absolutely. But in this video, I want to look at why it could be such a good signing for Tottenham Hotspur, why his profile fits us, sort of how Thomas Frank could potentially get the best out of his talent, because that's what you've got to remember as well. He's been playing for a West Ham team, a very dysfunctional West Ham team, one that's been through a lot of change in his tenure, from David Moyes to Julian Lopetegui to Graham Potter, never really settling, never really challenging higher up in that Premier League table. And I think if you gave him the right conditions with quality players around him, and imagine like Thomas Frank, that I guarantee you would know how to get the best out of him, we could be cooking. We could be cooking. So let's get into that now. Now, I think the first thing that excites me the most about Kudus is his versatility. Not just positionally, not just he can play off the left or the right or, you know, in behind the striker, but his versatility in his skill set. I think he has so much to his game and so much talent in so many different aspects that you'd look for in a wide player and a central attacking player as well, that Thomas Frank can kind of look at this guy and go, I can put him anywhere I want in my system, and I could get something different out of him in each position, which again is what I think Tottenham have been looking for in that attacking signing. He can play off the right, and some of his qualities absolutely suit him being on that right-hand side, driving inside, getting shots off from the edge of the area, sort of those whip balls as well that we've seen him produce so many times at West Ham. Also, when he picks up the ball from deeper, those marauding runs down the right-hand side, again, as we've seen so often, them coming off the left-hand side as well. He showed, you know, versatility in terms of the feet that he can use. He's got a good right foot. He scored quite a lot of goals for West Ham off his right foot. Ones that spring to mind immediately are the one against Manchester United in the final minutes. He scored other goals as well, one in the Europa League, which was a lovely goal on his right foot after he'd ran through about half the team. I think that's his most famous goal at West Ham. And also in behind the strike, you know, picking up these balls in these little pockets. I've got some screenshots. I went through basically his best moments of the last couple of years, and so many of his best moments, and yes, these are his best moments, highlights, compilations, etc. Say what you want, but I have also watched Kudus a lot of times. I've watched him in the flesh 4 times over the past 2 years, and I've also obviously watched West Ham a lot on TV, and he's always been somebody that's excited me so much. You can go back through my Twitter and see what I've been saying about him, but picking up the, you know, shooting from the edge of the box. He scored a lot of goals from both inside the edge of the box, arriving in this sort of area, arriving here off the left on the end of crosses, but also shooting from outside the box. This one at home against Newcastle. He's also scored another one away at St James's Park from outside the box, from a similar position, the ball falling to him on the edge of the penalty area, picking up the ball in central spaces. This was away at Burnley 2 years ago, I believe, where he picked up the ball in this central space, and I don't have the second screenshot, but basically he evaded these 2 players here, beat this man here one-on-one, went to the byline and cut the ball back, and I believe it was Mbamba the player who the young striker West Ham used to have, signed for City, I think, since then, who tucked the ball away, got a lovely assist, but he can pick up the ball in these central spaces. Honestly, his feet in tight areas is nuts. It is absolutely nuts. It really, really is. Again, picking up the ball deeper in these right-hand side positions against Manchester City in this clip, where he ran essentially the entire length of the pitch and then sprayed the ball out to the left-hand side, beating 3 or 4 players in the process, including Rodri, including Josko Gvardiol. It doesn't really faze him. And a lot of these clips, again, are against some of the better sides in the league. He always seems to perform against the better sides in the league. I remember against Manchester City when he scored an overhead kick on the final day of the season a few years ago. This goal that he scored against West Ham 2 years ago, where he received the ball over the top, took a lovely first-time touch inside and finished it across the goalkeeper in that right-hand space. Again, last season against Tottenham, season before last, against Tottenham Hotspur, picking up the ball on this left-hand side in this sort of channel. He beat Pedro Porro, Yves Bissouma and Cuti Romero. I can't remember what actually came of this situation. I think it led to a cross or a shot. But again, these all coming from his highlights reel, where he's popping up in different positions on the pitch and showing the different skill sets that he has and how they can be utilised. This clip against Crystal Palace was absolutely nuts. I mean, I screenshotted a few there. Picking up the ball in this position, deep in those left-hand pockets. Again, so comfortable receiving the ball pretty much anywhere on the pitch. Facing men up, in Adam Wharton in this case, and driving with the ball. And again, making it into this position here, where he passed the ball out to the left-hand side, created an attack for West Ham. And I think these skills you'll probably see less at Tottenham Hotspur because of the way that we dominate the ball compared to West Ham and kind of pin teams in, especially at home. You would imagine Thomas Frank will be wanting to do that. But again, when you go to the Etihad, when you go to Anfield, when you go to the Emirates, Stamford Bridge, whatever, these ball carriers against teams that are going to pin us in are absolutely invaluable. And I think that his skill set can be translated through a load of different sort of game states and situations, whether that be we're playing on the counter-attack, whether that be we're pinning teams in with his dribbling in tight spaces, his ability to get shots off, to get crosses out from, little shifts and creating that separation. And that is something that is so exciting to me. And what I wanted to kind of highlight here again was how the difference in our fullbacks and the difference in how he can play on either side. I think if he was playing on this right-hand side, he could potentially be used out here in a sort of wider channel where he's looking to take on his man one-on-one, get to the byline, put crosses back for the likes of Matisse Tell, who will be playing as that inside forward on that left-hand post, or Dominic Solanke, who will hopefully be arriving in the box too. James Maddison making those late runs in deep, but also Pedro Porro can sort of do those overlaps. He can do that a lot of the time as well. And Mohammed Kudus can kind of move inside the pitch and create from these sort of more central areas where we've seen somebody like a Dejan Kulusevski create a lot from in the first 6 months of last season for Tottenham Hotspur. There's so much that you can do with a Kudus profile here, which is why I think we're targeting him 100%. And if you put him out on this left-hand side, you've got Destiny Udogie, who loves to overlap, and Kudus can kind of move inside the pitch here in those left-hand spaces and just be a threat, be exciting in those positions, get in on the ball. It's obviously, what he loves to do. And I think there are some concerns, obviously, there. West Ham last season, a lot of West Ham fans kind of feeling like he down tools a little bit because they'd seen how much ability he had in the year beforehand. I think that made it kind of even more disappointing, some of the form that they saw from him in parts this season. I think the output was slightly disappointing from him as well this year. Only 8 goals and assists. But like I said, he probably did have a bit of an attitude of, like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I'm too good for this. And whether you think that's a problem or not, I believe that if he arrives at the right home and he sort of can take that arrogance in and he can go, I'm good enough to be here, it could work in our favour. And look, I don't really tend to read too much into these things when they've fallen out at another club and there's been a lot of managerial changes and that team is sort of flirting, in and around those 15th, 16th, 17th positions. A lot of what Spurs were doing last season for large parts of it, West Ham right in and around there. Some of the football they played last season was absolutely turgid, and you still saw those flashes at times from Kudus. You're always going to with a player like that, but I don't sort of take that dip in form as sort of something that's going to be a massive worry for Tottenham Hotspur pursuing this player. Like I said, I actually think it's a benefit to us, the fact that we can go and get him. If we could get Kudus for £60 million, when last summer the hype was at an all-time high, that player is still there. That player with all that ability is still absolutely there. It's just because the hype's died down a little bit. There's Semenyo, there's Mbuemo, there's Mateus Cunha on the market this summer. It's sort of probably overlooked Mohamed Kudus, Eze as well. And I just think this could be such a brilliant, sort of opportunistic yet ambitious deal for Tottenham Hotspur to do. I think, like I said, it would be so exciting to me that when we do actually sign and sort of see what Thomas Frank would want to do with him, how he could get the best out of him. I mean, could you imagine, like, an attack with the options of, you've got Brennan Johnson on this right hand side too. You still got Wilson Odobert who can play in there, but Kudus, Kulusevski, Maddison in behind them, Matisse Tell, Odobert on the left hand side too, Dominic Solanke. We might potentially even go and sign another attacking player too, maybe a backup to a Dominic Solanke, and I just think that would be super, super exciting. And the other thing with Kudus as well is that he's adding a profile that I don't think we really have at Spurs, where Kulusevski is a great ball carrier, but he's not particularly quick, and he's not somebody who's going to sort of break at lightning pace on the counter-attack, and Kudus can do that. I don't think we've got a right winger who can really face up their man consistently and take them on 1v1 and go on the outside and drive on the inside as well. That's not really Brennan Johnson's game. We're yet to see that to its full potential from somebody like a Wilson Odobert. So Mohammed Kudus kind of solves a lot of Tottenham's issues in those attacking areas. For me, I am still hot on the idea of Eze to Spurs. I'm still very hot on the idea of Xavi Simons potentially to Spurs, despite the fact that might be a much more difficult deal to pull off. I'd still, be absolutely okay with some of the other names that we mentioned as well. If maybe the deal with United falls through and we go back in for Mbuemo, if we look overseas, a player like Zagrova maybe that I've been banging on about that I'd love to see Spurs go in for all summer. But Kudus right now, in terms of like a target for this summer, like I said, he didn't even really cross my mind when we were talking about transfer targets, just because I was like, West Ham probably won't sell to us. The price will probably be too high. He'll go somewhere else. Maybe he'll even have to stay at West Ham. He'll be priced out of a move. But it seems like we're serious, and it seems like we're very, very serious about this deal. There was talk about us wanting to end our embargo with West Ham, basically end the sort of, I guess, non-transfers between the two clubs, even though it wasn't official or anything like that. It's not like an Arsenal or a Chelsea or anything like that. But I think, West Ham are always going to be reluctant to sell to us because of the backlash they know they get from the fans. But I've even seen a few West Ham fans this morning saying, look, it's not ideal that he ends up at Spurs, obviously, if he does end up at Spurs, but as long as we get the money for him that we want, and if Spurs offer to pay the most money, then, it's one of those where it'll be a bitter pill to swallow. But to get the money and to rebuild, as West Ham are in that situation where they do need to bring the money in to then go and spend on a squad that needs spending on this summer, it feels like an opportunity to get a player and a talent who has looked like a £100 million, £90 million talent in the past these days, which, everyone's probably looked like at some point, but and getting that for a cut price of potentially between 55 and 65 million pounds, it's honestly so exciting to me. It really, really is. And I've made a couple videos on it today already over on TikTok, and I've tweeted about it a few times, and there's some people who are a bit split on it, and I can understand that, like I said, because of the drop-off of form this season, because of some attitude things maybe, but look, I wouldn't read too much into that. I genuinely believe this is a signing that you can get seriously excited about in terms of an attacker who scores goals, gets assists, is so exciting to watch, so creative, a one-on-one dribbler. I think there's a stat going around that he's completed the most dribbles of any player in the Premier League over the past 2 seasons in the league. He's just someone who, like we have always loved having at the Lane at Tottenham Hotspur, a player who gets bums off seats, a player who, when he gets the ball, he just makes you stand up and he makes you feel something. He makes you get excited. And this is what I've been envisioning as well. Mohammed Kudus picking up the ball, those marauding runs, driving inside the pitch, driving outside, getting crosses in. He's just a player who, if we sign him, I am suddenly so excited to go and watch him at Spurs next season. And I feel like it will be someone that will really, really win the fans over quite quickly with his talent, with his relentless attitude on the pitch in terms of always demanding the ball, always wanting the ball. And that, to me, is something at least that is so, so exciting. And I don't really see how it can't be exciting to anybody else. Look, if you've got different opinions on him, let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to make more videos on Kudus if the signing becomes official, if we actually get it over the line, when Thomas Frank starts using him in pre-season. This is all very early stages, but that's kind of my initial thoughts on the transfer, how I would like it to go. I mean, obviously you could tell from this video, I absolutely want this to happen. I think it could be such a brilliant signing. I really, really do. I'm sure people will disagree with me. I'm sure some people will agree with me. Let me know in the comments down below how you would feel about this signing, how you feel about the potential fit. Would you rather still go for an Eze? Would you rather still go for a Xavi Simons? I completely understand if you do, and also let me know your reasonings for that in the comments below as well. And yeah, if you are new here, like I said, please do subscribe. Plenty of Spurs pre-season signing content coming out over the rest of the summer. And yeah, nice one.